Guys, welcome to part 13 now of this Serum course, and we're checking out the Unison engine on the global tab. So the really cool thing about Serum's Unison is that it's fully customizable. And I don't know how many soft synths let you. I consider myself kind of a soft synth nerd. And I know with some of the really popular ones like Massive, Silence, Spire, I could go on. They don't let you actually have a lot of control over what's going on in the Unison itself. You just have control of on or off and how many voices and usually maybe how wide it is. All right, so going to the oscillator tab here, I have a basic, let's find like a, let me go to like a Juno saw, that'd be cool. Actually, let me go to the 4088. Okay, so right now you can see I have 4 voices of Unison. The detune's at about halfway. And remember this bend, what it's going to do is it's going to either increase the voices out wide and decrease the ones in the middle when it's all the way to the right, or it's going to do the opposite of that, and it's going to increase the middle voices. Okay, so there's with the middle voices increased. Here's with the pan. Okay, so the Unison engine in the global is going to be controlling this oscillator's unison. So I'm just going to be messing with this first box. The second box correlates to oscillator B. This one correlates to oscillator A, which is what I only have active. So the first thing you see is this range. Now for a more musical result, you're going to want to keep this at 1 to 2. Now if I start to crank this up while I play a chord, it becomes not musical at all. What it's doing, and it's adding in semitones, it's adding more voices and more notes to your detune. So that's something that can be cool. For effects, it's really fun to have them cranked up high, but generally you're gonna keep that about 1 to 2 range if you want to play chords and notes. All right, now this width, this is a really standard feature with a lot of Unison engines. So right now I have the width to 100, which means that with this blend up, you can see that, or just about halfway, you can see that I have 4 notes right now. I have 4 voices of Unison, rather, and there is 2 in the middle and 2 outside. Well, when you have the width all the way to the 100, there will be some content out on hard left and right. That's one reason why these supersaw sounds sound big. Well, you have control over this. So listen when I play it. Let me turn this instance up. Well, now they're all in mono. This doesn't affect what's happening with my blend. It's just going to bring all those voices in to the middle. Now you might wonder, why would you want this or something like that? Because they're supposed to be wide. Well, actually, the thing that started this whole supersaw craze, the Roland, back in the day, that started the whole idea of supersaws and stacking voices in the Unison. Well, they all outputted to mono, so you had all these like 7 voices or whatever it was stacked into mono. So that's why that exists. So if you have limited space in your mix, or your stereo field's pretty busy and you have a supersaw lead, you can always decide to mess with the width and kind of make it more monocentric. All right, so let's go on to this warp. This is a pretty cool thing. So it's kind of confusing, but what it's going to allow you to do is it's going to warp your warp knob. So I guess the best one to show you on would be like a sync. So if I take this and play it, it's a very noticeable kind of a formanty type change in the sound, right? Now, if I go back to my global tab and I start to move this warp, you can hear that at negative 100. It's moving stuff across the stereo field. It's moving frequencies. It's adding frequencies too. So here's at 0. And now there's a high-pitched ring out on my right part of my headphone right now, and there's more low frequency in the left. So it's warping those voices, and it's pretty cool to think about, to have that control, because just a little bit of it can go a long way. So that'd be really cool for like the Reese basses and some of those really gritty dubstep electro basses. You could use that. All right, let's go on to the WT pause, the wavetable position. So this is pretty cool. It's what it's going to do is it's essentially going to introduce voices of unison in different frames of the wavetable, which blew my mind the first time I figured out what was going on with this. So let's play something. So that's actually playing. You can hear that when I go to positive 100, there's more content towards the right. And then when I go to negative 100, it's more towards the left. Well, it's actually cycling into different frames of the wavetable, but in a unison sense. So in voices of unison, not in actually adding different frames or wavetable position like this, where it's just scanning through the wavetables, it's actually adding them to your voices, which is crazy cool for stereo depth. So let's go to the stack. This is an interesting thing. This will stack different, maybe certain like chord stacks or octave stacks to the unison. So let's listen. So there's 12 times 2, so it got really high pitched. There's 12 plus 7, so this has that kind of stacked chord sound in house and deep house. Times 1 and then times 2 will be a little bit higher pitched. 3 keeps going up. So there's where you can control certain stacks of the unison voicings. And now let's go on to the mode section down at the very bottom. So by default, the unison detune mode is set to linear. And when you click on this box, you will be faced with a drop-down menu with 5 different algorithms that will tell Serum how to make the voices react while they're being spread out or pulled towards the center, how they're actually going to move. So linear means equal. So they're all moving equally from each other. And then the second setting, which we'll come to after we go to exponential, we're going to jump to exponential. Let's look at what that does on the detune. So for every additional voice of detune you're adding, the distance between them, and you can see there's 4 in this instance, is increasing outwards forever. Well, not forever, but it's going outwards until it hits hard left and hard right. We can hear how that sounds. Let's reset this sound. We'll do initial preset. Stick this sucker on a saw. I'll go back to 4. Let me go back to my global. And we're going to select exponential. And now let's see what this does. Okay, let's go back now to the global tab, and we can now talk about super. Super is a combination of linear and exponential. So some of it's going to move equally, and some of it's going to be moving in the way that the exponential setting does. And then the 4th setting is invert, which will make things move actually, if you start to spread out, let's go to a bigger cluster. Let's go to 10. So you can see that the outside voices are kind of clustered together, and the inside voices actually spread out. So this is a really interesting one. I like that one. It's kind of musical sounding to my ears. And then finally we have random, which will randomly move things around. As you can see, it doesn't look like any of the other modes, and it sounds very different too. All right, so that sums up the Unison engine inside of Serum. I'll see you in the next section.